faith, believe in your source, have faith.
Welcome to Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs, the podcast that dives deep into the stories of trailblazers who shape our world. Our co-host, Lulu Benavidez, is a seasoned entrepreneur in the beauty industry, is a photographer, artist, and the proud owner of Lulu's The Salon in Galveston, Texas. Our other co-host, Krokonis Hanson, is a visionary in the entrepreneurial world with years of experience in business innovation and development. Together, they bring you insights, inspiration, and the journeys of remarkable individuals who have made their mark. And with that, let's get started. David Kinigson is a renowned haircutter, educator, and industry pioneer with a career spanning over 4 decades. As a visionary behind authentic cutting education, he has inspired generations of stylists with his innovative techniques, thought-provoking education, and transformative approach to haircutting. An A-list New York City haircutter, David has worked internationally as an editorial stylist, runway artist, salon owner, and national educator. A Créateur de Mode Award recipient and master of the craft, he is a founding member of the Intercoiffure North American artistic team and serves on the ICA Cutting Council. David's groundbreaking wet and dry fusion haircutting method revolutionized the industry, merging precision with creativity and influencing modern salon culture. He was an early advocate for dry haircutting beyond geometric techniques, pushing the boundaries of artistry and functionality. His acclaimed books, The Original Apprentice Manual and The Haircutter's Handbook, with the preface by Vidal Sassoon, are considered essential reading for stylists striving for excellence. Beyond haircutting, David is a keynote speaker, career coach, and podcast guest, sharing his expertise in leadership, personal growth, and artistic innovation. His latest book, The Power of Asking What, explores overcoming challenges through the art of inquiry. A true Renaissance artist, David blends technical mastery with a deep understanding of culture, creativity, and human connection. Today, we're honored to have him share his journey, insights, and industry-changing techniques. Please welcome David Kinigson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs. I'm your co-host, Lulu Benavidez, along with our sidekick, co-host, Krokonis Hanson, and founder of Evolve Hair Solutions. We both are so excited and thrilled to have this conversation with the remarkable David Kinigson. I hope I got that right. With
anybody else.
With over 45 years in the beauty industry, David is an award-winning hairdresser, author of the Haircutter Handbook, and inspirational speaker. He's collaborated with legends like Vidal Sassoon and has been a pivotal educator, mentor, and countless hairstylists throughout the world. Beyond the salon work, he has graced pages to top magazines such as Vogue, Harper, Bazaar, and Elle. His dedication to authentic conversation and personal development has made him a transformation figure in the industry. So I can't hardly wait, so let's dive in. Hi, David.
Well, ladies, how are you?
Great. David, welcome to our show, Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs. And I'd like to begin by saying you've been called the inspirational voice of our industry. So I'm very curious as what inspired you early on, and were there people or moments in time that really moved your career or your development process?
Wow, what a great question. First of all, let me just say how honored I am to be here with you. I've watched your podcast and it's awesome. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
That's a great question and some really wonderful, kind words. I've been in the industry for 50 years and I've been inspired throughout my career by so many things. I don't know about other people, but I'm just an ordinary guy with a list of challenges. Over my career, I've dealt with my stuttering, my dyslexia, stage fright, my own self-doubt, fear of getting into trouble. I mean, certain ADHD things like object permanence. And so it's been a career of being inspired by everything around me, really selfishly, for me to get over my own challenges and barriers so that I could be more available to primarily the women who sit in my chair and the people that I educate. So that's been like the context of my career, and then I can go back to tell you what inspired me, to actually become a hairdresser and what it was like at the very beginning.
Yeah.
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 So David, you develop a wet and dry fusion cutting method, and it has tested the time. It has tested over time. Over what, 40 years or 50 years? You said you've been in the business.
Yeah, I'm celebrating last year over into this year 50 years as a departmentalized hair cutter, and obviously educator. But I started it. I've been immersed in education since the very beginning, when I was a student and a protege, or what we called an apprentice. And then it's carried on throughout my whole career, where I've always been learning and developing my own approach, like you said, my fusion method of hair cutting, and sharing it with others so they could develop as hairdressers.
Yeah.
So, back in the beginning, my first aha moment was becoming a hairdresser. When I looked around the salon and thought, these people are having fun. And I asked my hairdresser, Robbie, my hair cutter, Robbie, how do you become a hairdresser? Gave me the best guidance counseling in my life. And I was off and running for the rest of my life, inspired by all the various aspects of the industry. And then I'd have to say, early on in my career, I had a very big aha moment with regard to hair cutting. And that's how I developed my own approach, which is a synergistic art of suitability, line, silhouette, and movement. And it all comes down to this fusion that I call a wet and dry fusion. And I began with this approach back in the early 70s, and then it's expanded over time, and it's grown beyond what I can imagine in sharing with others how you can cut hair better, how you can make a woman look more beautiful.
Yeah.
And when you start to approach hair cutting like that, and other synergistic ways, you reach places that you might not have seen before, staying in the mix, but rather stepping out of it, if that makes sense.
I think sometimes hairdressers can get so into the technique that they lose the big picture of the end result for the client. And, I love what you just said. It's so on point. You're also known for introducing a more artistic, spiritual side to hair cutting. How does that enter into your world, your philosophy, your creativity, and come through when your scissors is in your hand?
Well, whether I'm cutting hair in the salon working with an individual person, or I'm developing a concept for a collection that I want to, get some press on, I would have to say that everything's always rooted in substance, and always has a deeper context, a subtext, if you will. And when I'm in the salon, it's all about the person that's in my chair. And as I said, I'm pretty challenged. So unlike other hair cutters or other hairdressers, when I'm working on my person, I actually really need to concentrate. I prefer quiet rather than conversation. For me, the client conversation happens before and after the haircut. If I must talk during the haircut, if a person needs something, they feel the need to share something personal in their life, I'll actually put my shears down and come around and talk with them, and then go back to work. And I've always had that Zen-like approach to hair cutting. And if I would, you know, during the client conversation, also the consultation, my intention in that conversation is not just the obvious, to quote unquote find out what she wants, or quote unquote tell her my professional opinion. My intention is to be what I call musified by the client in my chair. And what I mean by that is in that conversation, I ask more questions than I talk, so that I can elicit from that person, and it's almost always a woman, because my whole career has really been doing women, that I am touched in some way by her essence, what it is she's about, so that she becomes my muse. And when that happens, and it doesn't happen all the time, and when that happens, you just know exactly what to do, because what you're going to do is being given to you by her. And then when I'm cutting, my intention is to become one with the hair, for me to actually disappear into the work. And I know that sounds maybe all wooey, but that was the question. You know, and that's the kind of thing I've always strived to teach or share with my proteges and my assistants and the people who participate in my classes, beyond the technical skill set. There's the skill set, there's the theory set, there's the mindset, and then there's how we communicate with the client in such a way that she gets something that makes her look and feel beautiful, and you feel proud about the work at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. That's great answer.
You know, maybe I'm very technical and I got to understand the technical part. So back to that question, you developed the wet and dry fusion haircutting method.
Sure.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Can you tell the technical side? Are you cutting the hair wet, then you're drying it? Are you drying it first, shampoo dry, and then cutting it? You know, I don't know, because I mean, I've seen so many different, you know, John Hag did the dry cutting method, and so I know his method. So can you tell me what the wet and dry infusion method is?
Yeah. So for me, you know, I grew up as a hairdresser, a young hairdresser. I grew up in what I call the silver era of precision haircutting, and I was really fortunate to work at Vidal Sassoon, and before I worked at Sassoon, I'm proud to have been trained in what I call the Roger Thompson lineage. Yes, and I worked and trained with disciples of Roger, and then soon after worked with Roger, and I had at my foundation, at the heart of it, classic precision, geometric, wet haircutting. And then at that time, it became a rather intellectual or theoretical approach as well as technical. And working with Roger and the people who taught me before that, I was exposed to working wet hair from wet to dry. And we called that period something like natural haircutting, where we encouraged women to embrace their natural texture. And the haircut was really meant to be work on its own. It was meant to need minimal styling. So early on, I started to do more of the haircut dry and began to develop dry cutting techniques that gave me results I couldn't get from wet cutting. So when I approach a haircut, I look and see what is the target that I'm looking to get. And that target is based on what comes out of the consultation. So the final result for me is a combination of everything at my disposal. How I assess the hair. What is the texture of the hair? How's she going to wear it? What's her features and head shape like? How are the growth patterns of her hair working? And depending on if I'm cutting long hair, medium length hair, short hair, a classic bob, a graduated bob, a deconstructed haircut. It could be a lot of different things. I then choose whether or not I'm going to begin cutting it wet or cutting it dry. For me, haircutting is a series of choices. And the better the information you have, the more informed your choices can be. And so then I make choices. Will starting this haircut wet give me the result that I want? Or should I just do it dry? And then I go about it. So how much I cut wet and how much I cut dry is a fusion. It's up to me at the time. And I began working this way in 1976 when I naively introduced I was so excited. I was this punk kid from like, I have this idea. If we do this dry and if we do this dry, and little did I know that I was in the house of wet precision cutting. And it really didn't fly so well. So I went and moved. I left Sassoon the first time I worked there, and I moved to Houston, Texas. And over that year that I was there, a year or so, I developed what was the original plane blending method of wet and dry hair cutting, which has since evolved into fusion cutting, because there are benefits to both wet and dry. You know, I say that hair cutting is a series of choices. Each subtle or dramatic choice we make gives us a different subtle or dramatic outcome. So the world is your palette, and you just keep developing your repertoire of techniques so that you can, as a hairdresser, hair cutter behind the chair, develop choose the best possible technique at the time for the person to give her the haircut that's going to be excellent for her at that moment.
Wow. You know, you put it so beautifully. And from the method, the wet and dry method, fusion, you then developed the book called The Haircutter's Handbook.
Yeah.
Which is the Bible for all hairstylists.
Thank you.
Can you tell me what your vision was in writing this book?
Sure. My vision was that I didn't actually have a vision at first. When I was at Sassoon the second time, and I was the first person to ever be hired back at Benavidez Sassoon, and I'm really grateful for the time that I spent there. I originally wrote the third section of the book first, which was the original apprentice manual. I wrote the original apprentice manual while I was working at Benavidez Sassoon, and they used it for about 15 years. And then I incorporated it, I revised it, incorporated it into my book. But there it was, that was that manual. It was a freestanding apprentice manual. And I've since, fast forward, created an excerpt of the Haircutter's Handbook called the Apprentice Manual. So now it's a standalone, and it makes a really great training manual. But I was the education director at Pepino Buccheri Salon in New York, one of the greatest salons I ever worked with, and one of the greatest salons ever. There was more talent under that roof than any other salon apart from perhaps Sassoon. And aside from that, it had the largest house of editorial hairdressers, of which I'm so honored to have had a wonderful career in editorial, working for the magazines. And so I was teaching or turning the class over to one of the hairdressers that night, one of the trainers, and I realized we had a little bit of a conflict of what a term was, around graduation. It took us 20 minutes to sort it all out. And then I realized that we didn't have a standard language for modern haircutting.
Correct.
That's when my vision began, that we would have a standard language for haircutting, much the same way there is for hairdressing, and just about any other art, whether it be dance or music. Every art, every industry has a language, and haircutting didn't. And so that was the impetus for writing the Haircutter's Handbook.
Yeah.
Great.
It's a fabulous, fabulous book. I'm
Thank you.
also very interested in you're part of the ICA Cutting Council and Intercoiffure artistic team, which I've seen you work several times, is no small thing. How do those affiliations affect you both personally and professionally?
Well, they affect me to my heart and to my core, and it reaches every area of my career, that affiliation. As an independent educator, unaffiliated with a major manufacturer, it was a career honor to be named a founding member of the North American Artistic Team and the Cutting Council.
Right.
And the collaboration that I had led to multiple appearances on the main stage, and it continues to be a highlight of my career because, as you both know, you want to surround yourself with great people.
Right.
And that has to be one of the largest groups of great people coming together. And then when you're on the artistic team or you're a part of the cutting council, well, then you're now working with, people that you've admired your whole career.
Right.
I'll never forget that the year the Haircutter's Handbook came out, and it was a manuscript. It was single-sided that I had printed up at Kinko's, and it was in a spiral binding, and Sam Bricado bought 6 copies of it.
Yeah.
And I was sharing. I had a table that I was sharing with, I think, Sheer World, and I'm talking to Sam, and around the corner comes this powerhouse of a dude that I never met before, and he just came over, bop, 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 Sam, hello, Dave, bop, 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 went back around the corner. I was like, yo, Sam, who is that? And he was like, well, that's Van Council. Now, you have to imagine that David was selling his manuscript. And Van was also, back then, it was 1986.
Right.
And so to then get to work with Van and Sam and on the artistic team, let me just say, perhaps the best part of the whole North American artistic team and being not only a founding member was that the artistic director, Mary Brunetti, we are each other's oldest friends
That's
in the industry.
Yeah.
We went to cosmetology school together. We danced at Rum Bottoms on Long Island together. And we have been friends ever since. And when she got named artistic director and she invited me to be on the team, that really was the highlight of being on the team.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Can you tell the audience what it means to you, or what is ICA, Intercoiffure Artistic Team?
Well, ICA is just kind of short for Intercoiffure. It's Intercoiffure North America. So it's our Canadian partners, and I'm not certain if we have an Intercoiffure in, for instance, Mexico, but it's Intercoiffure North America. And tell me what was the
No, I just wanted you to explain what Intercoiffure is all about and who's the members of Intercoiffure.
So Intercoiffure, now that I got the ICA out of it, and I told you I was challenged lately.
Yeah.
So are we.
Love. Intercoiffure is out of Paris, Intercoiffure Mondiale, and it's an international organization, and it's an organization of salon owners. You have to be a salon owner first and foremost to be an A member. And once you are a member of Intercoiffure, you are among some of, if not all, the leading salons in this case, America, North America. And it's a great honor to be invited to be in, and to be sponsored to be in, and to be accepted in. And I've been a member as a salon owner, and I've been a member as a specialty member when I closed my salon. And I'm just a freelance educator and an inspirational speaker, that kind of thing. And it's been an honor to be a part of Intercoiffure, because they are a group of people up to sharing with each other unabashedly and vulnerably everything they have to offer. Mm-hmm. So you have a wealth of education and connections and good camaraderie that will last you a lifetime at your disposal.
Yeah, yeah.
I know. Well,
if you're a salon owner, I invite you to join.
Well, I was a member. I dropped out recently, but yeah, I know Sue and I know everybody, and we were fortunate to do a presentation for Evolve, one of the companies or the company that Sue owns, Evolve Hair Solutions. So yeah, we're pretty familiar with Intercoiffure and everybody that's involved, and we have gotten so much out of it. Which leads to me, let's talk about your legacy. After all the shows that you do, all the stages that you're on, all the clients that you service, what do you hope people will remember you by?
Well, I hope I'm remembered at all. Everyone, I think, does, but I've always had a purpose. Mm-hmm. Everything I've done in my career has been what I call purposeful. Mm-hmm. And I've always have been looking to provide a transformational experience long before we coined, it used to be called makeovers. Mm-hmm. And there was no transformation. As time goes on, buzzwords happen. Mm-hmm. And, I've always been a student of transformational studies and a program leader for transformation. So I've always lived what I call a transformational life, which doesn't really mean anything other than you're always working on yourself. Mm-hmm. And to that degree, I've always had a purpose, and I hoped that my purpose was bigger than myself, and that I would provide what I call a transformational experience, that if I was mentoring you, you would come away, greater than you were before having a conversation with me. So I've always wanted to be known for something worth something to others. Mm-hmm. And specifically, what's important to me are things like the person in my chair. So I would like to think that the people whose hair that I've cut would remember me for empowering each of them to so feel cool and look beautiful in expressing their own style. And I've always attempted to do that by creating what I call signature couture haircuts. Mm-hmm. And be known for haircuts that grow out better, last longer, and require minimal styling. That's so cool. And for never selling out my principles or lowering my standards. And for doing things that had integrity and artistic value and learning value. And lastly, mentoring. Mentoring haircutters to develop their skill set, theory set, and mindset so they could be greater professionals and make the world a more beautiful place, one haircut at a time.
David, I'm kind of blown away by your honesty and how humble you are, particularly when you look at the salons that you've worked in, the celebrities you've done, the magazines that you've been in, the education you've taught in some of the largest venues. How do you stay so grounded and true to your purpose, because this is the flash in the pan business. This is an ego driven business. So it's just, I'm just kind of completely intrigued with how grounded you are.
Well, I'm really touched, and thank you very much for having that particular interpretation of me. I thank you. I'm humbled by that. There's always a lot of talk about ego, and ego is not something to shy away from. It's something to embrace. When I did some studying many years ago up at an ashram in New York with Guru Mai, Baba Muktananda's ashram, I often say things that cause, provocation. I don't necessarily intend to, but I said that Baba didn't have a problem with people with big egos. And in fact, he liked people with big egos. And they got very bent out of shape, everybody. And so we called over one of the Anandas, the guys in the orange, and we asked him. And he said, oh, no, people with egos are very important. Baba always liked people with egos because they get shit done. So you really need to embrace your ego and not get rid of it, but embrace it. There's a whole other aspect to it, but more to your question. You have to remember where you come from. As I said earlier, I'm a punk ass kid from the streets of New York. I am grateful. I am grateful for the opportunity. Every part of my career, from apprenticing to getting a position on the floor, to working for the magazines, to the people who will allow me into their salon to teach them, and every woman or teenager or sat in my chair that wanted something, I'm grateful for them, because all of that has given me an unpredictable and inspiring life and a career that, if I hadn't gone into that hair salon that day, I was a poet and I was a writer. I was literate. I grew up in a literate family, and I was destined to be an English teacher, which isn't a bad thing. And I wouldn't have been the first in my family. But Robbie, who 50 years ago had a conversation with me that set me on a path that 50 years later I've gotten to do things and spoken to people and been around people and taught people and learned from people and been to parties and traveled that I wasn't going to have. So I think it's important to be present in the moment and dig where you're at and be grateful for it. And then I could go on. Don't believe the hype. It's all showbiz. It's showbiz. Be bigger than life. You know who I love? I love Rowena Yeager. She's like, I think I got her last name right? Rowena. She's like
Rowena, yeah.
Rowena. She's like that. Those 5 feet is your stage.
Yeah.
But then when I go home to my wife, that's not who I am.
Right.
So, there's that. And I'd like to say that, I've never been flashy. My intention's never been to be flashy. It's always been to be rooted in substance and always be doing the work to develop your skills and your communication and your personal development. May I share something about communication and consultation?
Sure.
Please.
So, there's something that we all hate, and that is a redo. Which, I started calling adjustments many years ago because the context will matter. If it's a redo, that's kind of harsher than if it's just an adjustment, right?
Yeah.
So I've been calling it an adjustment for decades, but nobody likes it. And when you're called into the office and the conversation had with you, like, she didn't like it, almost always we put the onus on the woman well, she didn't tell me what she wanted. Well, that's exactly what she did. I did what she said. And whether or not that's true is beside the point. There's simply no power in that. Where the power is if the result didn't turn out the way you want. Let's say she didn't like it. That's not the result you wanted. You didn't get the result you wanted. Or you're looking at your haircut and you don't like it as much. You know that it could have been better, right? The only place there's any power is over here. And the question is what did I miss?
Right.
What did I miss in the consultation? That if I had heard that, if I had gotten that, I just didn't cut hair as good as I think I did. And I just didn't listen as good as I think I did. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, that one. And if you take that approach, what did I miss? What could I have done better? Then you will grow, and it no longer becomes like she didn't like my haircut, but it becomes how could I develop myself to further my excellence? So that's that kind of doing the work and working on myself. Doesn't mean I don't like it. It doesn't mean I don't feel bad. It doesn't mean shoot or I still have those emotions, but I don't let those emotions dictate how that's not the road to go down. The road to go down is what's going to provide me the greatest amount of growth.
Right.
That's so true. And that's, not only do I tell my staff, it's not about them. It's about what I have to do in order to make it better. And it starts with us. And once you know that and you accept it, you can grow. And that's, and out of all the guests that we've had is you have to have a passion for what you do. You have to take the blame and not say, I didn't receive that accolade, or that award because it was rigged or it was this. No, what do I have to do in order to get the results that needs to be done?
100%.
Can I jump in for just a minute? But there's two things that you said that I think are critical, because right now there's a tremendous need to attract the right people to our industry. And I think we've lost something in you said, Robbie spoke to you about it. This is the most fabulous business. We've all been in it more than 50 years. It's taken us on wonderful, but I don't know that we're speaking to the right people about what a great career it is. So that was my first thing. Thank you for sharing that. And my other thing is I just can't, Lulu knows this. This is my soapbox issue. Of all the things that we teach, cutting, coloring, curling, waving, blow drying, whatever, I think the skill that we teach the least, which is the most important, is verbal skill. And the verbal skill is not talking to the client, it's knowing what questions and how to respond. So I salute you for folding that into, your synergistic system of dealing with the client.
The client conversation, the consultation fundamentals, that is a skill set.
Yes.
Just like graduation, layering, and it must be treated that way, Sue. Absolutely. 100% aligned with you.
Yeah. Good.
Well, David, you call yourself a spiritual artist, and I love that. What does that mean to you in everyday life outside of hair?
Yeah. Well, it means my practice. Besides having written the Haircutter's Handbook, I also wrote a book on personal development. and it's called The Power of Asking What. And I have had a parallel career in transformation, and then and over these last 50 years. So I practice certain principles, whether they be metaphysical or ontological. It all comes down to what I call the pause. Pause to reflect, to come to know yourself, so that you can have a choice in how you respond to whatever life has thrown down the pike, and as opposed to react. So I practice the pause, pause to reflect and know myself. I practice gratitude, and it's not just gratitude for the obvious, like, I got a booking today, I'm grateful. No, I'm grateful for the failures that I've had. I'm grateful for the opportunities I've missed. I'm grateful for the ailments that I have in my body. You know, when I'm going down the stairs and in the morning, and I get a little pain in my back, and I'm like, oh, and I start to go down that road to complain to myself. That's the cue to pause and be grateful for that pain in my back, because I'm really happy with my ailments. And I've heard there are some people who don't have 10 little fingers, 10 little toes, and they're in worse shape than I hope I'll ever be. So you want to be grateful, or I don't want to tell anybody what they want to do. I want to be grateful for all of those failures, missed opportunities, and ailments, because I'm really fortunate to have been there in the first place.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I try to practice, I don't try to practice, I practice it. Never seek revenge. You don't have to worry about anybody's karma. Their karma is that they get to be them. And I wouldn't want to be them.
Yeah.
Don't gossip. And what I call think beautiful thoughts.
Yeah.
Think beautiful thoughts.
Wow.
Beauty before avant-garde, beauty before creative, beauty before weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the place I come from in my life.
Yeah.
And that allows me to be inspired by the everything, the zeitgeist, the everything, where I go, who I talk to. Like, why I'm so, if I'm anything on this call, it's because I'm inspired by you and the questions you came up with. You know, you initiated this conversation. And so it's inside of the inspiration that you are that's giving me what I'm inspired by right now. And that's how I live my life.
That's
Great.
so cool. So cool.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
David, there's the people in our audience love to get to know the person beyond the brand or beyond the craft or whatever. And we developed this thing, and for some reason, our audience loves it. So we call it the Flash, because we'll ask you 5 quick questions, and they're personal, they're about you. And we just, it's like just to give us little nuggets that sort of let people look a little bit closer into David. So are you willing?
I am willing and able.
Thank you. So the first question is, morning person or night owl? When does your best thinking happen?
Night owl.
Yeah.
When I know I won't be interrupted, I know the phone won't ring and I won't get a text.
Okay.
This is not how we play the game, but I have to say this. So Lulu and I are such a good team because we're opposites. So the other morning at 4 o'clock, I was just pushing myself away from the computer, And in comes this thing from Lulu. And I'm like, Lulu just got up and she's already at the computer. And we met at 4 a.m. in the morning. It was so funny. Anyway, that's a little bit of insight about us. Okay, here's the next one. What's one song that will always put you in the zone?
Hallelujah
Oh,
by Jeff
yeah,
Buckley.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Since you can't play one song over and over again, any song by Serge Gainsbourg, French pop, female singers, the Beatles, or the Electric Light Orchestra.
Oh, my God.
The playlist, it's perfect.
It's
Perfect.
my go-to playlist.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. What's your guilty pleasure? Something that you love that might surprise people.
Playing guitar might surprise people if they don't know me. Playing guitar keeps my creativity flowing.
Yeah.
So like if I'm working on a class, so I love to play guitar just because, and I love writing songs and singing them for people. But the actual playing of the guitar keeps my creativity flowing, because if I'm working on a talk or a program, or I'm writing an article for my column, if I hit what most people would call a block, when I find myself not being able to generate anymore, I'll pick up the guitar, and then that puts me in a state where my creativity is still flowing, and then I'll think of it.
Yeah.
And I'll put the guitar down, I'll go back to the program I'm working on, and I pick up my creativity. So my guilty pleasure is also a very functional pleasure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. One thing what is one other thing that people would be very surprised to learn about you?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, and that's I have a parallel professional career in personal development and transformational studies and what I call mindset in action. And to that point, I started playing guitar when I was 36.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. That's so cool.
I spent the first 36 years, or from the time I was 11 till 36, thinking I couldn't play guitar. And now I'm an award-winning lyricist. And the thing people should take away from that is, if you have a dream, it's never too late to begin it.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Do you have a favorite quote or mantra that gets you through the day or tough times or?
Yeah. Well, depending on what I'm dealing with, I have a few. I have the Hawaiian mantra, Ho'oponopono, and that is, I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
Oh, wow.
That's one. And then the other is what I said a minute ago, begin it now.
Yeah.
Goethe's great quote, whatever you can do, in part, whatever you can do or dream, you can.
Yeah.
Begin it.
Begin it.
You know, begin it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I have others, but those two are pretty much, you know. I love George Bernard Shaw's quote. And again, that's a fairly lengthy quote, but the part that is the punchline is, life is no brief candle for me. It's a sort of splendid torch, which I have got a hold of for the moment. And I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. And that's important. You know, when you mention the people that you know, I talk about, I could talk about so many others. Roger, Mary, you know, when I worked at Pepino Buccheri, you know, Edward Tricomi, a good friend, and the list goes on, because we want to be handing it off to future generations. And I hope the internet generation, the YouTube, the Instagram generation will get on board looking at the people that came before them. And it's incumbent upon us, the ones who've been around a while, the elders, to share about our colleagues and the people who mentored us, because that's where they're going to find out from. And
Right.
you know, it'll come around just like vinyl. We're like vinyl. We'll be back.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, when Sue and I started this podcast, that was one of our goals, was to bring guests on that had been our mentors and our mentors of others, and also not to forget the new crowd, not to forget where the old crowd, the elders, as you put it, came from, because you have to learn from somebody. You have to learn from somebody
Yeah.
in order to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you mind me saying something to the elders who have a problem with the young people?
Yeah.
No, please do.
The problem is not the young people. The
Right.
young people are doing what young people have always done,
Oh, exactly.
which is being young. When I was a 21-year-old hairdresser, a 20-year-old hairdresser, and a hair cutter, and I told the boss, the owner, that I didn't want to take blow dries, that I only worked on haircuts. That was
Yeah.
just as radical as saying I don't want to work on Saturday, or
Yeah.
I want to make my own schedule, or whatever. You know, I was being young and I was a thorn in their side. What's different is social media.
Yeah.
And we find out about
Technology.
everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, give the kids a break. They're just being young. And that's what young people are supposed to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mentor them.
Yeah.
Mentor them. So where can they find you on social media and the books you have written? Can you tell the audience?
Sure. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I have a small profile on Threads. And I do have a profile. You find me on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
And then I have David Kinigson, Kinigson, David Kinigson.com. But it's under construction, so I don't know exactly what you'll see. On any one of the platforms, please shoot me a personal message, DM. I respond to everything. I love the engagement. My 3 books are available on Amazon.com, Amazon. And I invite you all to scope out this fabulous magazine out of the UK, independent beauty professional magazine. And I have a column, a quarterly column called Wait What? And I write a piece on a what question. And we're getting a really good response for that. And I hope to meet you at a live show or or at a salon near you.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, where are you from? I mean, where are you living right now?
Well, I'm from New York. I'm born and bred and reared in New York City. That's where I'm based in. But over the last 20 years, I live in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Oh,
And
wow.
with my wife and my kids and my grandchildren.
Yeah.
And have a wonderful life here. But so I'm a transplanted New Yorker.
Well, you
living
can
in-
take Alligator Alley right across and find me in Naples. So I love,
in Alligator Alley.
yeah.
We have to get together.
Well, we should. I mean, after all, we like all the same music.
So when you are you both over there?
No, I'm in Texas. I'm in Texas. I'm in Galveston.
This Lulu. What part?
Galveston, right 50 miles south of Houston.
Oh, I know where it is. I told you I lived in Houston.
Yeah.
I lived in Houston. Went to Galveston all the time.
Oh,
I
wow.
love Texas. I love Texans, and I love Texas women. Not in that order. And Sue, when you come over to the East Coast, shoot me a text. Well,
Love that.
I'd love to have
I
dinner
would
with you,
love
my
that.
wife, whatever.
That'd be
Do it.
great. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be so cool.
This is
Making new
great.
friends. Making new friends.
We always are. Well, thank you, David, for enlightening us. And your passion for your craft and your commitment to education is truly sets you apart.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you very
wonderful.
much.
So, on behalf on artists, icons, and entrepreneurs, I'm Lulu Benavidez and my sidekick, Sue Krokonis Hanson. We thank you again for subscribing to this episode. If you like David, please, please subscribe to the episode and listen to him because he's going to be on in a few weeks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, what an episode. That wraps up another exciting edition of Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you're leaving inspired and ready to chase your dreams. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode over at youtube.com/artists, icons, entrepreneurs, as well as Facebook at Lulu Benavidez, on IG at Lulu Benavidez, at Evolve Hair Solutions as well. And don't forget to visit our website at lulubenavidez.com and evolvehairsolutions.com to stay updated. Until next time, keep dreaming big, creating boldly, and making your mark on the world. Thanks for listening, and take care, everyone.